Last part about Israel-Palestine, more information I wanted to give you on that front is that Turkey has imposed export restrictions. This is going to hurt Recep Tayyip Erdogan's bottom line. Let me tell you something, okay? Hey, call your loved ones who are engaging in import-export to Israel right now in Turkey, because honestly, devastating for his bottom line. I mean, devastating. Oh, man. Oh, dude. Really, really, really suffering. Who's really suffering around these parts?
Exports to Israel until it reaches a ceasefire with Hamas. Israel called it a unilateral violation of trade agreements and has promised to respond. These new measures come a day after Israel declined Ankara's request to airdrop aid into Gaza.
Biz de hava kuvvetlerimize ait kargo uçaklarıyla
We had submitted a request to participate in the humanitarian aid operations with cargo planes of our Air Force. We've learned that this request, which was welcomed by the Jordanian authorities, was rejected by Israel. There can be no excuse for Israel to prevent us from providing aerial aid.
This is how I found out Turkey sends jet fuel. Ho, ho, ho.
To starving Gazans. In response to this situation, we have decided to take a series of new measures against Israel.
Well, for more, let's speak to our correspondent, Sinem Koscioglu. She joins us now live from Istanbul. Sinem, this is obviously a symbolic gesture on the part of Turkey, but talk us through the details. What do these restrictions relate to in terms of exports?
Anastasia, this is the first significant measure that Turkey has imposed against Israel since the beginning of the war.
Rare Turkey W or nothing burger? No, it's not a nothing. It's not a nothing burger at all. It is actually very much a something burger. I told you guys this already. Like, I've told you this since October 10, that Recep Tayyip Erdogan is all talk. One must ask the question, why were they exporting so much to Israel? How did that happen? He said a lot. He said so many things. He said, I'm going to tell you 1 minute. Q Israel, Satan Yahoo. That's what he said. LGBT. So what happened? Now, many of you are obviously American, so you don't know this, but there was, in the first month of Israel invading and completely sieging Gaza, there was a bit of drama in the Turkish part of the internet as it pertains to your boy. Because of my bilingual dual nationality status, I'm able to offend the hogs both in the United States of America, but also in Turkey as well. I said some things, I think it was on like October 10 or something, calling Turks dogs for supporting Israel, saying that you dogs that support Israel don't understand that you are seen as dogs to the Western world, that they do not distinguish between you and the Muslims in Gaza. You are the same to them. Thinking that you can parse your way through this and thinking that you can say like, no, those are Arab, those are different, is not going to change the way that the Western world sees you. This upset a lot of hogs who caused them to speculate that I was a Fethullah Gülen supporter, which is laughable, a siyasal Islamcı, which is Islamist fundamentalist, like a political Islamist, which is also, again, laughable because simultaneously, I am also a homosexual man in the eyes of many Turks because I paint my fingernails. Do they call you an Arab lover? Yes, that too, of course. And that I do not know what the fuck I was talking about. Now, a lot of those Turks that were chirping at me, of course, had to reckon with the reality quickly, where there was a shit ton of support for Gaza internally in Turkey. Some of those Turks in power, some of those politicians in power had to go back on their statements, right? There were a lot of like nationalist anti-Arab parties that were hyper focused on talking about how, what was it? What did they say? If you want to defend Gaza so much, if you want to be an Arab so much, you should just go to Gaza. We'll send you there. What happened to those guys? What happened to those takes? Even Erdogan had a shitty take after October 7, which he quickly had to realign when he saw the groundswell of support for the Palestinians inside of Turkey. Now, it's okay to all the Turks who were very upset. I even went as far as to say that Israel could do Mavi Marmara 1,000 times over to the Turks, and the West would not even bat an eye. So since then, Recep Tayyip Erdogan has changed his stance. Of course, he said when he realized that this Israel shit was not going to fly, karpuz satıcısı, he, the watermelon salesman, turned around and offered full and unconditional support to Hamas, to the Palestinians, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, of course, while Recep Tayyip Erdogan was saying such things publicly, Recep Tayyip Erdogan's son, a shipping magnate, was still facilitating shipments and facilitating trade with Israel. That never changed. We give weapons to Israel. We ship jet fuel to Israel. Not only that, but also Turkish pipelines connect Azerbaijan to Israel. Israel gets around 30 to 40% of all of its gas. Everything that like Israeli energy is hyper reliant on Azerbaijan. That those pipelines go through Turkey. If Erdogan wanted to, he could shut off, he could cripple the entirety of the Israeli energy infrastructure. Of course, that would never happen. Let's be real. We are a NATO country in Turkey after all. So, interestingly enough, Recep Tayyip Erdogan got absolutely shafted. His party got absolutely shafted in the local elections that took place. I covered this this past week, if you recall, where the opposition parties won massively. And since then, a lot more anti-Israeli sentiment and demands have come. And now Turkey is finally imposing restrictions on exports to Israel until it reaches a ceasefire with Hamas. Look at that.
In October last year, the products that include iron, steel, fertilizers, chemicals, aluminium, and many other, mainly construction products. And I have to remind that Israel is Turkey's third biggest trade partner. So,
whoa, what? Whoa.
According to the trade ministry, the exports and imports have already declined within the last 6 months, around 33%. Mainly Turkish exports to Israel declined 43% already. But let's remember that these are all mostly private sector exports to Israel, and they have declined without without the governments imposing on those companies so far. But one of the major incidents, besides Israel's rejection of Turkey's airdrop aid delivery to Palestine, is the backlash from the Turkish society, mainly the pro-Islamist young people who have been demonstrating and who have been calling out for boycott against Israeli products. That has actually found a ground among the Turkish society. As from right to left, when it comes to Palestine, it's a common issue. People are very sensitive, and they have been individually boycotting some Israeli products that have also led to decline in the commodity products. But of course, as I said, Israel is Turkey's largest trade partner. And
so this is actually a very weird position. No, they're not wrong. Okay, there are a lot of Islamists in Turkey who love Palestine, who love who love Palestinians. That's not a joke. What ended up happening is, because Erdogan has a major Islamist constituency, what you have to understand is that his own supporters were like, no, big dog, we love Palestine. What you mean? Okay. Do you see Al Jazeera as a credible source? They've reported a lot of disinformation on this conflict. Please tell me what kind of disinformation they've reported on this conflict. That would be awesome. I'd love to hear what you consider to be disinformation, especially if we're like comparing it to CNN, the New York Times, or any number of different Western media outlets. Al Jazeera, well, of course, if you ask them what their position is on like the Qatari government or whatever, you're going to get a lot of weird shit. But if you're talking about Al Jazeera, especially the English version of Al Jazeera and their coverage of Israel, it's literally one of the best, if not the most consistent and best reporting done on this. Al Jazeera also happens to have some of the only journalists that are inside of Palestine, inside of Gaza. Let's continue.
This is a big step since Turkish Foreign Minister Fidan announced that.
Oh, what I was trying to say is Erdogan has a lot of fundamentalists, like Islamist fundamentalists in his own, like a big chunk of his supporters are Islamist fundamentalists, and a big chunk of his supporters, of course, are like pro-fucking Palestine for understandable reasons, because like, you know, Israel is doing a genocide, but that also offers them additional reasons because like this is a genocide against Muslim people. So like, obviously there are a lot of Islamists who are anti-Israel and pro-Palestine for those reasons. But the other side is also even like all the way from liberals all the way to like rugged leftists who also are in defense of Palestinians. There's a lot of understandable anti-Israeli sentiment in Turkey.
The measures will be
so they're doing BDS finally
immediately in place as of this morning. The mentioned products, 54 materials, products in construction industry will not.
Why is this guy not mentioning why Al Jazeera is not credible? Is he looking at Wikipedia or something?
Be exported to Israel.
What the fuck? Why are they burning the American flag? Why wouldn't they? Who do you think is most responsible for Israel's genocide outside of Israel? This is what a lot of people don't understand about the way that many that you consider to be like barbaric, many in the region that you think are like barbaric anti-Semites or whatever, and sure, some of them might be, okay, for sure, absolutely recognize this as Western imperialism. This is very difficult to understand from an American perspective, because you're like, what do you mean? All of America's actions in the region are good, usually, or at least for some reason, even if I don't agree with it, right? Many people do recognize it, though, as such. If you recall, I showed you guys Hasan Nasrallah's own sentiment talking about anti-Semitism being silly and how this war is not against Jews, but instead is a war against Israel, and also, more importantly than Israel, America, because Israel represents the interests of America. Sorry, I might have been wrong. I just saw they rescinded a report pretty recently. I've never really interacted with Al Jazeera before. Okay, well, if you can find whichever report you're talking about, we can have that conversation. But rescinding one report is that's like infallible in comparison to many reports that should have been rescinded by Western media that never even got rescinded. But regardless, I hardly see a USA flag touch the ground. This is wild to my programming.
But of course, Israel has another chance. For instance, Germany is another supplier, but this will be costly for Israel. We will see how it will end up. As Turkey says, these restrictions will be lifted as soon as a ceasefire is in place. Back to you.
Sinem Kosciuszko there with the latest for us from Istanbul. Well, let's now get the view from occupied East Jerusalem and speak to Imran Khan. Imran, are you hearing anything from the Israelis by way of response here to Ankara?
Well, there's a very strong response from the Foreign Minister of Israel, Israel Katz, who actually said Erdogan is once again sacrificing the economic interests of the people of Turkey for his support of Hamas. We will respond accordingly and prepare an extended list of additional products that Israel will prevent Turkey from exporting. He's actually also gone on to say that Israel is going to appeal to pro-Israel countries and organizations in the US to stop investments in Turkey and prevent the import of products from Turkey. It's also going to reach out to friends in Congress to try and figure out if Turkey is actually in violations of boycotts against Israel and try and apply some sanctions on it. So a very tough response there from Israel. It remains to be seen how quickly all of that can take place. Ceasefire negotiations, like I say, are taking place, being downplayed by Hamas and by Israel, but they're certainly...
Yeah, no more Waze, huh? I bet you won't like it if you no longer have access to Waze. Fuck you, terror children. Turkish people will no longer be able to access our Waze. Are you familiar with Waze?
Take place, and any kind of trade boycott...
Yes, use Google Maps.
Boycotts do take a long time to be able to put in place. So at the moment, this is...
Not Airways, Waze, bro. Waze, the app, Waze. It's a meme for the most part, but Waze is Israeli. Yeah, no more Soda Stream.
Very much a war of words. What practical element it has on the ground, whether it's an immediate stoppage of trade between the two countries. Let's see what happens in the coming days.
Imran Khan there following that spat for us from occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you, Imran.
Google owns Waze, so they can't even ban it anymore? Oh shit, major L. Major L for Israel. They lost Waze, bro. Also, breaking from Barak Ravid, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin during their phone call on Monday that Israel has not yet set a date for an operation in Rafah, according to a source with knowledge of the call. The source told me Gallant said to Austin that Israel would have to carry out several necessary actions before an operation in Rafah, mainly an orderly evacuation of the civilian population and an increase in humanitarian aid. Here's Alan Dershowitz talking to the Forward magazine, saying he would actually defend Yahya Sinwar.
I have a deal for Sinwar. If you surrender, I will defend you. If you surrender and turn your...
It's like, listen, if you need the most eminent Elias scholar, I got you. Trust, dude.
Yourself over to the Israeli authorities. They will put you on trial, and I will be your defense attorney. Deal? Got a deal? Come out with your...
We'll mention it, but
got yourself a pro bono lawyer. I will fly to Israel. I will defend you without cost, and I may even win. But you have to come out and surrender first, and then I'll be your lawyer.
Is there anybody you wouldn't defend?
Obviously, I wouldn't defend somebody who's a continuing criminal who would go back and commit more crimes. I draw a line there. I don't defend people.
So he doesn't think Yahya Sinwar would commit more crimes based. He's saying he doesn't even think what Yahya Sinwar did is a crime. That's what he's saying. Is this Lolo's mentor? Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh, that's up, but that's so funny. We're going to go with that going forward. Yes, Alan Dershowitz, Alexander Lull overruled mentor Alan Dershowitz. No, that's too up. I don't think we should make that joke. That's too much slander. Israel sets date for full-scale invasion of Rafah despite U.S. objections.
Invasion of the city of Rafah despite strong objections from the United States. Palestinians are returning to scenes of destruction in areas where Israeli troops have pulled out for now. As Holly Williams reports, many are finding there's hardly anything left of their homes.
Most Israeli forces have now left southern Gaza, and thousands of Palestinians are moving around freely for the first time in months. For some, that's meant a homecoming to the city of Khan Yunis, but in their once bustling communities, they found a wasteland. Half a year of war has brought destruction on a colossal scale to Gaza and an unending descent into despair. Malak Mahmoud showed CBS News producer Marwan Al-Ghul the ruins of what was her home. I can't find anything, she said. I lost my books and all of my belongings. Israel's military says it now has no operational forces in southern Gaza and just one division inside the Gaza Strip. The other division that was there moved out over the weekend. The remaining troops are positioned along Gaza's border with Israel and to the north, where the Israelis have built a new road cutting across the Gaza Strip from east to west, thought to be part of Israel's planning for after the war. The military says the troops who've pulled out are recuperating and preparing for future missions. And despite US opposition, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel's now set a date for an offensive in the southern city of Rafah, where around 1.5 million people are sheltering. That date, though, is unspecified. The US says there's a ceasefire deal on the table for Hamas, but a spokesman for Hamas told CBS News the latest negotiations in Cairo over the weekend were a, quote, setback. Gail?
Wow, shocked, I tell you. Oh, watch. The United States says, or Lloyd Austin says the U.S. has no evidence that Israel committed genocide in Gaza. Once again, shocked to find out that the American government is still defending Israel unconditionally by lying, because we are also genocidaires. We have to, no matter what, we have to just be mentioned in history as those who did not simply look away when our ally was engaging in ethnic cleansing, but instead defended it unconditionally, uncritically, supported it, gave it weapons. We are the bad guys. Make no mistake.
Austin, thank you for acknowledging in response to Senator Wicker that Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th and has been committing them every day since by using human shields. I want to address what protesters raised earlier. Is Israel committing genocide in Gaza?
Senator Cotton, we don't have any evidence of genocide being created.
So that's a no. Israel's not committing genocide in Gaza.
We don't have evidence of that.
Thank you. Better than Director Burns and Director Haynes did last month at the Intelligence Committee when they dodged that question. You stand accused by those protesters of greenlighting genocide. Would you like to respond to that accusation?
What I would say, Senator Cotton, from the very beginning is that we committed to help assist Israel in defending its territory and its people by providing security assistance. And I would remind everybody that, what happened on October 7th was absolutely horrible.
By those very same metrics, what has happened since October 7 is unconscionable and definitely constitutes ethnic cleansing. But of course, we can't say that, Yeah, no, the real genocide was on October 7, actually. And the fake genocide that has happened since then is not a real genocide.
Numbers of Israeli citizens killed, and then a couple of hundred Israeli citizens taken hostage.
American citizens as well.
American citizens as well.
So you deny the accusation that you greenlit genocide?
I absolutely deny.
Okay. For the record, I don't think Israel's committing genocide. I don't believe you greenlit genocide either. You talked a lot with Senator Reid about Israel's responsibility to provide aid in Gaza. Why does Israel have a responsibility to provide aid to Gaza? Israel was the victim of an unprovoked, vicious attack on October 7th. Why should they provide aid to the aggressor nation? Or aggressor, Gaza's not a nation, to the aggressors on October 7th. We didn't provide aid to Germany and Japan during World War II.
What we did provide aid to and assistance to to many of the countries that we've operated in recently.
But not in World War II. If you had been in George Marshall's or Dwight Eisenhower's position in World War II, would you have wanted to provide aid to Germany?
I really do believe, Senator, that if they want to create a lasting effect and in terms of stability, then I think that something needs to be done to account to help the Palestinian people.
I get that, but they're in the middle of the war. Like we believe that too after World War II. That's why we had the Marshall Plan. That's why we rebuilt Japan. But that was after the war was won, not in the middle of it. And in the meantime, like it's not Israel's responsibility to provide aid. It's certainly not our responsibility, but we're spending our tax dollars to build this giant pier to send aid into Gaza. Who's going to accept that aid?
So Tom Cotton is against any aid to Palestinians? Is that what's going on?
Who's going to be at the end of the pier on the shore taking aid from American forces?
That's still being worked out, but there will be NGOs that will help to distribute that aid.
That Hamas is in charge of Gaza. When aid goes to Gaza, Hamas doesn't divert it or commandeer it or steal it. It accepts it. And anybody operating in Gaza is under the thumb of Hamas. I just think it's very ill-considered, and I don't think it's going to end very well. Let me move on to Ukraine. The Biden
Let's move on to Ukraine.
Administration has discouraged Ukraine from launching refinery strikes against Russia. Why is the Biden administration discouraging Ukraine from undertaking some of the most effective attacks on?
Wait, I didn't know Tom Cotton was like pro-Ukraine. My man literally just loves chaos. Yet another perfect, obviously inconsistent position, which is he's pro-Ukraine, but anti-Palestinian emancipation. It's not a how. It literally is just, this is the senator that is invested in Raytheon. That's it. This is the senator that's invested in Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. This is the senator that no matter how much he deviates from the public position and what is the norm, he is pro-American State Department. That's it. He's like, we should not discourage Ukraine from, striking Russia at its heart. Also, simultaneously, we should let Israel finish the job. That is the American position, the American State Department position.
On Russia's war-making capabilities.
Certainly, those attacks could have a knock-on effect in terms of the global energy situation.
Isn't aid popular on all sides? Who is this for? Good question. Great question. It is. The numbers are insane now. Okay, 6 months into Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, and the numbers are insane. Okay, it's like 80% of Democrats and 60% of Republicans that want to deliver aid. Similar numbers for Israel ceasing its hostilities and engaging in a ceasefire, both permanent and temporary. And yet, for some weird reason, if you look at the congressional outlook, if you look at the members in Congress and their positions, they seemingly are not on board with it.
But quite frankly, I think Ukraine is better served in going after tactical and operational targets.
Joel Severud, thank you for the 10 community gift to subs. Yes, he's evangelical Christian. That's why he's positioning himself this way. But even if he wasn't religious, like, he would be positioning himself this way. This is the position of those who don't care about the humanity, who don't care about ceasing hostilities globally, but instead accelerating the demise of people.
That can directly influence the current fight.
So it sounds to me like...
Wait, what did he say? Hold on.
A knock-on effect in terms of the global energy situation. But quite frankly, I think Ukraine is better served in going after tactical and
who's it popular with? Right-wing evangelical freaks, and also the defense industry. That's like a big part of why the Republican Party operates the way it does. That's why he's positioning himself like this.
And operational targets that...
What's Hasan's position on Russia-Ukraine? Russia has committed an unjustifiable act of war by invading Ukraine. Russia needs to cease its hostilities instantly. Russia needs to withdraw its troops from Ukraine, and that I still do believe that inevitably the cessation of hostilities is going to come with a reoriented version of the Minsk agreements, which of course means that I'm pushing Z and I believe Russia is infallible. And I love Vladimir Putin, and I am a tanky who loves Vladimir Putin almost as much as I love the top of the hour ad break. You really think at this point that DPR and LPR will accept Western Ukrainian rule? I don't know. I don't know what will happen. I think that some form of like autonomy under the Ukrainian banner is probably what the best possible scenario is. But I don't know. I don't know if Vladimir Putin will give back all of the territories that it annexed in Western Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine, sorry. NATO caused the Ukraine war. NATO accelerated the likelihood of a Ukraine war, but it doesn't mean NATO caused the Ukraine war alone. After all, Vladimir Putin is the one who made this decision to invade Ukraine. It is a ridiculous decision. It was a bad decision. Just to simply state that it was a NATO-born war is at least this far into the conflict is, missing the forest for the trees. Vladimir Putin is the number one NATO dick rider of all time. No one has loved and solidified NATO support from Western countries more than Vladimir Putin has by invading Ukraine. Like, holy shit. What a gift. What a gift. What a gift to Joe Brandon. What a gift in general to NATO, to the generals, to the defense contractors. It's so awesome. Anyway, are you okay? You always look miserable. Is your mental health doing okay? Yes. Wait, what? I look miserable always? No. I think you just have resting sad face? Do I? What do you want me to do? Be like this? Can hit the Mormon perma smile
that can directly influence the current fight.
So it sounds to me like the Biden administration doesn't want gas prices to go up in an election year based on all the other actions they've taken to drive up gas prices further. But anyway, I want to turn to one final point about the recruiting crisis our services face. The Army is the most acute. It's challenging all services, though. I've spoken to numerous recruiters, frontline recruiters, heads of recruiting battalions. Two of the most common things I hear is genesis and a lack of medical providers to process new recruits. Do you have a memo on your desk from the services to place a pause on Genesis?
No, not.
Have you received that? Because my sources tell me you've received a request from the services to pause Genesis.
I talked to the services about the service secretaries about Genesis, and also have talked to the service chiefs about Genesis as well. I don't have knowledge of any of that memo. But what I will tell you is that we're doing everything we can to improve the number of healthcare providers that are available and to streamline the operations with Genesis. Now, Genesis.
Okay, I'm not even kidding. Maybe I don't smile that much because my smile muscles hurt already.
This is it's an issue that our recruiting force had to work through, but it is not the sole cause of.
No, I know it's not the sole cause. There's a lot of other causes. I just say it comes up constantly. And just for those listening at home, Genesis is not just the first book of the Bible. It's this giant medical records system that now catches everything that's ever happened to you. So, every drill sergeant accuses recruits of lying to their recruiters so they can get into the service. But
let me tell you something. My favorite take about people being like, no, Russia had nothing. Like, Vladimir Putin was backed in a corner. He had to invade because he wanted to defend LPR and DPR, the people of LPR and DPR, is that it is such a hilariously bad take because so many more people died in LPR and DPR since he invaded. And not only that, but also many other people who may have even been supporters of Russia or might have even identified as Russians in Eastern territories no longer feel that way at all. So it's a tactical misstep on every front. Even if you're pro-Russia, even if you are literally pro-Russia, it is so ridiculous to think that what he did was great. If anything, he should have just continued funding and facilitating disruptive defense initiatives in LPR and DPR instead of invading. See, you're saying it. They were being killed by militias from the West for years, currently not being killed anymore. I mean, that affects some people. No, Putin, etc. See, that's why I knew that people were going to say this. Brother, that's insane. So many more people died in Eastern Ukraine now as a consequence of his invasion. So many Russians died as a consequence of invasion. You're talking about 14,000 people that died, right? Leading up to the invasion, as though hundreds of thousands haven't so far, as though that's somehow a better, that's somehow a better outcome. It's not. It doesn't make any sense. You make no sense if you have this position. Anyway.
But now Genesis catches all that. So if you broke your arm when you were 12 playing Pee Wee football, Genesis knows it. If you were prescribed an SSRI because you were depressed when you were 13 because your parents were getting a bad divorce, Genesis knows it. And you got to go through a whole lot of rigmarole to get a waiver. Now, look, we can't have psychotics joining the military, but if a kid was on an SSRI when he's 13, does that really matter? Does it really matter? If he broke his arm when he was 13, he can't have a degenerate bone condition, but he broke his arm. And I know you'll say, because I've heard it before, that there's waiver approvals here. It takes a long time. And if
I'm bored of this part. Move beyond it.